World Economic Forum, of course, kicking off in Davos 2026, January the 19th. There's going to be a full week of a whole lot of discussions there. And as far as the themes, human capital development, artificial intelligence, the planet, so much to discuss, as well as cooperation. We're going to be speaking right now to Chido Munyati, who, of course, is the head of Africa at the World Economic Forum. He is live in Davos, in Geneva right now. Chido, compliments of the season to you, and thank you so much for joining us. I guess, Chido, I wanted to kick things off with you talking about the big issues dominating the Davos agenda this year.
No, thank you so much for welcoming me, and it's a pleasure to see you again. Look forward to seeing you in Davos in January. So this year's theme is a spirit of dialogue, and there are five global challenges that are centered around the conversation. The first, as you alluded to, is cooperation in a contested world. I think for the African continent, this is really around trade and integration. As we saw this year around the world, trade rules are shifting. Many of the systems that African countries came to rely upon are fragmenting, and as a result, access to external markets is becoming less predictable. Within this context, Africa's best bet, or our best hedge, is really to accelerate the implementation of the single market under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, moving up value chains, as well as building resilience at home. That's the one thing that we can't control. And at the World Economic Forum, we've been leading on this front under an initiative called the Forum Friends of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. This is an initiative where we've been mobilizing the global private sector to support with the implementation of the AFCFTA by deepening their industrial value chains across the continent, as well as strategically ensuring that they're investing in critical infrastructure. Of course, this AFCFTA agenda will be core and central to our conversations in order to realize this potential. Without the networks, both digital, financial, as well as physical, the AFCFTA will remain an aspiration. However, we have seen some positive developments this year, namely in Nigeria, where you are right now. We saw it with the Dangote refinery, which is Africa's largest industrial complex. We saw it last month in Guinea with the launch of the Simandu iron ore, which is the largest of its kind and has the potential to provide the outputs or the inputs to build cross-border infrastructure in Africa. And then also more recently in Ethiopia with the Grand Renaissance Dam. So there is signals and signs that we're building the necessary large-scale infrastructure to realize the potential of the single market. However, much more needs to be done going forward. So I'll stop there. That's probably the first core topic that will be platformed in the Africa agenda.
Great stuff, Chido. And it's really important that Africa is able to fix up supply chains and shore up the infrastructure needed to facilitate trade within the continent. But Africa also has to trade with her partners. So, I mean, is there still, of course, the risk of trade being impacted based on things, talks about tariff and everything else that's going on outside Africa in terms of trade?
Absolutely. So as we've seen recently, trade preference schemes can lapse as partners recalibrate access and terms. And so it's within this context where I think Africa has to become a bit more self-reliant, and that's the role of the AFCFTA and the single market. If we can ensure that we accelerate the implementation of the various protocols that have been put forward, if we're ensuring that we're investing in critical infrastructure, I think that's the best way to address some of the challenges and headwinds that we face.
Now, I do want to ask you about artificial intelligence. That was for us on the business desk here. That was the focus of our year-end report. What role can Africa play in the global AI revolution? There is just so much going on in there. How do you see it from the Africa perspective?
No, that's a great question. I mean, we're meeting at a critical juncture in January, which is really defined by the rapid acceleration of exponential technologies, as you alluded to, such as artificial intelligence, which are really poised to transform economies and societies, perhaps more profoundly than any other technology that has come before them. But here's a critical link. In order to realize the potential of these technologies, namely, for example, generative AI models require exponential computational resources, and the inputs for this are, of course, critical minerals and rare earth elements. And these are inputs that are in abundance in Africa. They form the foundation or the inputs for everything from GPUs to data centers, as well as advanced battery cells. So in short, in order to realize the potential of the clean energy transition, as well as the digital transformation, we really have to make sure that we are managing these resources effectively. In the context of Africa, it's really critical to understand how we're ensuring that this time around we're actually extracting value from these outputs, as opposed to simply exporting primary commodities. How are we building industrial clusters around these various critical mineral hubs across the continent to ensure that we're building industries around these technologies, these inputs, as well as building the necessary capabilities to build economies to absorb this demographic dividend.
Speaking of the demographic dividend, Chido, last time we had you on the show, we're talking about the collaboration that the UF, through you, had with the Nigerian government and others in developing skills. And I think skills and jobs are still part of the AI story. How much of an emphasis is going to be there as well, as far as job creation and skills for tech?
No, absolutely. As you alluded to, this 2 months ago, we launched a skills accelerator in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Trade and Investment. This, I think, is an important effort that we're advancing in collaboration with the government of Nigeria as part of a global network of these skills accelerators, which really bring together best practices in terms of what the private sector sees as demands in the industry, as well as bringing together best practices from around the world to ensure that young people are being equipped with the skills necessary to succeed in this digital world. Of course, it goes beyond STEM skills. We still need vocational training to do necessary things in sectors such as agriculture and infrastructure, where we still need to build out significant infrastructure to realize the potential of, for example, cross-border trade and many of the other ambitions that the continent has. So absolutely, skills are at the center of this. As our jobs report alluded to, 40% of the skills that people currently have will change in the next decade. And so we need to be sort of vigilant in ensuring that we're addressing those challenges.
Fantastic stuff. Chido Munyati, head of Africa over at the World Economic Forum. A whole lot to discuss with respect to Davos 2026. Thank you so much for giving us a preview. And we look forward to seeing you, of course, in Davos in January to talk a whole lot more. Thank you so much for your time.